Lucas Henveaux, how you doing, man?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm good, man. Where are you at?
I'm in Andorra right now, so that's right between Spain and France, up in the mountains.
Wow.
Doing some more altitude before we get going to Doha in about 3 weeks.
Okay. Now, you're swimming at Cal. Are you what's the story with the situation with Cal?
Yeah, so I swam at Cal last year.
Okay.
Did the whole NCAA season, and then I wanted to continue studying for this season. And and what happened is, I mean, they're really expensive in the US if I wanted to do a master's program.
Mm,
So I got off of that and went to the UK. Actually trained in Loughborough for the fall at
okay.
Loughborough University. So I was training with Dan Whiffen, Felix Aubach,
Mm,
all those distance guys back there. And then I joined Cal for another great camp in OTC. That was awesome over Christmas and New Year's. Raced in Knoxville for them, and then now I'm just prepping Worlds on the pre-camp with the Belgian Federation.
okay, right. Okay. That makes sense. It's kind of sums up your career a little bit. You're all over the place. I'm trying to
Yeah,
piece all the details together, man, because we were together up in the OTC just a couple of weeks ago.
yeah. We were together for a week. You were there with Marsh and Dern,
Yeah.
giving some of the spring guys some good pointers. A lot of
How
the
did they
guys
like
enjoyed
it,
it. They
man?
were
Did
saying.
they enjoy me working with them?
Yeah, they did. They really liked that one set that you did this one time with the back end speed efforts
Uh-huh.
and yeah, I think they really enjoyed it because you're very technical also,
Hmm.
and you know your
Yeah.
stuff, and I think they enjoyed that. Uh, good.
Cool. Well, bummer I didn't get to work with you. Now, in terms of eligibility for Cal, are you done?
Um, I have technically I could get a COVID waiver. Um, and we've discussed this before. But with the Olympics, we're still trying to see where we are
Yeah.
on that because I actually only competed one season of NCAA, right? But
Right.
the thing is, back when I was playing golf, like a long time ago, I'm sure we'll get into that maybe a little bit. I played college golf back in 2018, 2019. So
Mm,
my clock started back then, you know.
okay. Yeah, it was interesting because I went to dinner with Coach Durden and Coach Marsh while I was up at the OTC, and I was just talking to them. I said, "How's the team?" I said, "Who's the guy on the team that kind of everybody, um, you know, respects the most, or who's the person that?" And they just kept coming back to you. They're like, "Lucas. Lucas is the guy. Lucas is the man." And they're like, Dave Durden was telling me, he's like, you got to talk to this guy. You got to get him on the podcast. He's got an incredible story. He was playing golf in college. I was like, hang on, whoa, wait up. What? He's playing golf in college, and now he's swimming at Cal, and he's training for the Olympics. I was like, it was mind blowing. So I guess we'll get into it, man. Like, tell us a little bit about your background. Like, where did this all begin for you?
Yeah. So I mean, it began. I started swimming and playing golf when I was just a kid. You know, my dad was a national team coach. Went to 7 or 8 Olympic Games for Belgium in
Mm,
swimming. So I was back since all the way since LA '84. You know, and
wow.
so I was swimming, playing golf. You know, just going through age group ranks, and I was okay when I was like 11, 12, whatever. But then I was just like super short. I was the shortest guy ever. I have a photo
Right.
here. I thought I would show it to you, so I clipped it. I'm this little guy right here
Oh, you're
at
the tiny
15 years
guy.
old. Yeah, tiny guy. At 15 years old, this is me. So I was playing golf at that time, and about 15, 16, I was like, well, I'm done with the swimming thing. The only thing I can race is the 1500 because I'm like too weak and too short for anything else.
Mm,
So the last 2 years of high school, just like didn't swim really. Was playing golf. Went to a golf academy in Spain for a year, and then there I mean, recruited, I guess, to go play
yeah.
NAIA golf. And so I had I had a dream to play on the PGA Tour, you know, that was my whole life. That was what I was working for. Um, and yeah, I went to the US in 2018, so at 18 years old, to play college
Oh,
golf. And after 1 year, I think I had a little bit of a realization that it might be harder than I thought, to pursue this really, and I really didn't like the school I was at. So I decided to come back in 2019 and just study, do my undergrad in Belgium, and I just lived, you know, student life for about 1 year,
yeah.
and then COVID hit, I guess, in 2020, and then when that happened, I actually started getting back into it as my club team, which my dad was coaching, was getting back in after COVID. And yeah, so I've been training pretty much since January 2021. Yeah, that's about it.
Wow, wow. Tell me about golf in terms of the world perspective, right? Like you think to yourself when you look at the professionals play, you think to yourself, well, it can't be that difficult, right? But like there are thousands and thousands of kids that are playing and all the way up through the
Yeah.
professional ranks. There's different levels of it, but the amount of money they make. But you think to yourself, it couldn't be that difficult to get there, but I guess it's extremely difficult, right?
Yeah, I think there's like a large talent to it. You know, you got to be born with you know, good hand-eye coordination. You know, be you know, have really good feel for the club, for the ball. You know, but then you have to have something here that very few people have. You have
Mm,
to be able to remain extremely calm under very high pressure situations. You know, when you're on the 18th hole trying to win a tournament, you got water, you know, water next to the
yeah.
green. You've got 180 yards. The wind is pushing towards the water, and you've got the flag is like tucked, you know, like five
Mm,
yards away from a bunker and 5 yards away from the water, and you got to make birdie to win the tournament. Some people just, you know, can keep their cool extremely well, and you know, just hit the shot when they need to hit the shot, you know?
yeah.
And that's something that, you know, there's not a lot of other sports where you have that level of pressure and you need that level of concentration. Um, and yeah, it's very mental. You know, I had good physical attributes. I hit the ball very far. Um, you know, I have decent hand-eye coordination, but I feel like I always struggled mentally a bit. I would get riled up quite a bit. And and yeah, but when you see those guys at the top, you know, they can just keep their cool better than anyone else, really.
And what about that mentality now? How does it serve you, or how have you learned to adapt that mentality into the water now?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just a lot more confident now because you know, if you play golf and you practice and you play 9 holes and, you know, you shoot 2 under par on 9 holes, like, you think you can reproduce it, but realistically, like, the next time you might go play, you might shoot 3 over par or whatever, you know? But
Mm,
in swimming,
right.
when you have all those repetitions day to day in training where, you know, you're hitting 400 pace for, you know, 3100s or whatever it may be, you know, like, you're just, like, repeating and repeating and repeating and just n improving your technique, improving your physiology, you know, getting good at doing efforts in practice. I feel like the confidence to be able to reproduce it in the meet is a lot higher than in golf.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you know, like some guys on the PGA Tour might shoot, you know, 61, so 11 under par one round and shoot like 74 the next round. It's like you swimming 100 free in 47 seconds one day and going like 59 the next day, you know? It's like,
Mm,
it'd be very tough to build, the same level of confidence, um, you know, in golf than in swimming, I feel like.
yeah. Now, Dave Durden also mentioned that you're very much a student of the sport. You're somebody that studies the sport
Yeah.
as well. So I guess you took that from the element of what you were doing with golf and having to learn and study to the pool. So what are the things you do in the pool to help you be better at what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes from my dad, you know, so he's been coaching forever, you know. I mean, swimming is part of our family. My sister
Mm,
swims. She's gonna come to World Championships with me, to swim the 4x2, and
Mm.
he was actually a commentator the last 3 Olympic Games for the Belgian television. So,
All right.
I mean, you had Otto on the podcast. I'm
Mm.
pretty similar to him in the way where I just study the greats, all the way back to, your Beyondies, your
Mm.
going into Australian freestyle swimming, your Perkins, your Duncan Armstrongs, your
Yeah.
and I study what they do, and I try to I'm very, very particular on technique also. I have hours of footage on my laptop just trying to, see what other people's are doing, yeah, other people are doing, and just see how I can apply it to my stroke. Um, and yeah, I'm very, very thoughtful when I swim. Um, and I feel like I have pretty good feel for what I'm doing and if I'm applying the technical cues that I'm trying to improve, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah. I actually did. I asked Dave Durden this question, and I'll ask you: why don't distance swimmers hold a steady 6 beat throughout the entire practice?
Yeah, we talked about you asking this to Noah and Dave actually.
Oh, good.
I f- I I personally kick pretty hard the whole way. I can't race without a 6 beat kick, even in an 800. I feel like the reason why is that I mean I think it's twofold. One, it gets your heart rate up a lot higher
Mm-hmm.
for the same speed. If you can just pop the hips up and really not kick much, just get into good pulling. You can keep the heart rate down and you can keep the lactate down a lot. I mean, obviously you're going slower because you don't have that propulsion behind you. But like
Mm-hmm.
I trained for 4 months with Dan Whiffen, and he doesn't kick until the last 25 of his race. He's always
Mm.
joking that he doesn't need to train kick, only needs to train 25 max speed kick because that's all he uses it for. But and also like when you have the propulsion from the legs behind you, well, you're gonna pull. Technically, You're gonna have less resistance on the cap. So you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
pull less water than you would if you were just pulling. So they can actually get to like someone like Dan, someone like Felix also can actually like pull like more water when they don't kick than if they would kick. Obviously the rate is a little higher for than and they get into really good rhythm of just like pulling and keeping the hips high. And but I feel like in training, especially for middle distance guys, I would think like 200, 400 guys. I think it'd be pretty crucial to 6 beat kick the whole way because I mean you see the guys now like if you don't come back like 26 high, even in an 800 really, like you got to be able to kick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, kicking's obviously faster, which is why Dan brings it in the last 25 because he's going to
Yeah, yeah.
accelerate. So my kind of thinking is like, why don't we train it more? And you said, well, it jacks your heart rate up. Well, that's because we don't train it enough. But don't you think we could condition ourselves and we could control our heart rate even more if we were to incorporate it more into practice, right? And then maybe cut the yardage down a little bit, right? So like instead of
Yeah.
swimming as the bulk of the yardage, maybe you bring it down a little bit, you include the kick, you practice training faster. Because I remember I was watching a swim where I think you were doing some back end 50s and you brought the legs in. I was like, why doesn't he train like that? I was telling Josh, I was like, Josh, why doesn't he train like that? Because he looks
Yeah,
amazing. And
yeah.
he's like, because he can't hold it that long. I was like, well, train
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, but yeah. I agree with that to a certain extent. But at some point, like the energy expenditure is just. I mean, when you're kicking like 6 beat,
Right, right.
if I'm pushing a 24 at the end of practice or whatever, well, the amount I need to kick for that is just so high that the total energy expenditure for the body is just too high to be able to really hold it like a
Right, right.
significant amount, even if you trained it like and I mean when someone like like you see Dan, Sam Short, Hafnawi, like these guys like pull so well and can keep their body line so well when they just don't kick
Right.
that like keeping the heart rate down for so long is probably really good to be able to bring it back 53 in the last 100 of an 800, because it's like they still keep the body line very, very straight and very, very high on the water, even though they
Yeah.
don't kick, you know?
I agree, I agree, but the problem the look, I'm gonna keep throwing counter arguments at you because I like this, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my counter argument to this, again, would be, I saw Ian Thorpe swim multiple 340s long course, right? I saw him
Yeah, yeah.
swim multiple 340s long course, and I'm talking 20 years ago. So,
Yeah, yeah.
in order to progress the sport, in order to move forward, in order to go forward, if we just keep training the system the same way, right? If we just keep saying, well, it costs too much leg expenditure or energy expenditure to run the legs, so we're gonna train the length and the system. Well, then all of a sudden it's just a bunch of guys training the same system, and who can hold it,
Yeah, yeah.
who can be the longest, who can be the strongest on the pull, but no one's really focused on the legs. Now, if we focus on the legs more in the 400, don't you think at some point we're going to start to see guys swim under 340?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what's really crucial is actually being able to swim with different like kick rates,
Right.
and that's when you saw like when Thorpe broke the world record next to Hackett. I think it was 2000. It wasn't in Fukuoka, it was before that. He went
Hmm.
7:39, I think. When he broke Kieran
Right.
Perkins's world record. He's actually not kicking. I mean, he's like steady kicking, and then he brings it
Yep.
in at the end. But then in the 400, he kicks a lot harder, and then in
Hmm.
the 200, he has the best kick out of everyone. And I
Right.
think being able to kick at different rates actually
Mm.
allows you to have such a larger range of events. Like
Yeah.
I've heard stuff on your podcast, I think, where he could go like a 3K for time in like 30 like 30
Yep.
minutes basically.
Yep.
But he could
Yep.
also swim 48 4 back in those days with no
Yeah.
wedge,
Yep.
and medal at the Olympics in the 100. And I think that comes from the legs, just being able to be incredibly fast, probably
Right.
being able to kick like around a minute, I guess,
Yeah.
on long course, and
Yeah.
and and then and then actually being able to you like keep the body line nice and use them a little softer in like a 1500 or like an 800,
Yeah.
and that I think brings like a lot more range to what you're able to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one completely. And this is where I think, we're seeing this kind of bottleneck of these distance swimmers, coming in now. Like you mentioned a bunch of guys already, and I think the at the Olympics this year, I mean, we're going to see some incredible races in the four.
Yeah, yeah,
Do they even have an 800 at the Olympics? No,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they
eight,
do now. 8 and 15. Yeah,
8:15. Yeah, yeah, they do. Okay, there we go. So, like, I think we're going to see some incredible races in those, but just because the amount of guys. But again, like, how are we going to create separation? Is it just going to be who trains the system the best, or is it going to be, like you said, somebody who can figure out, okay, the legs are important here. Why don't I and Hafnaoui maybe the guy, because when he kicks,
yeah, yeah,
dirty kick, so
yeah. He
I
does.
don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
he's up to, where he's training these days, but
yeah.
maybe it's you, man. Maybe we see you. Or what about you? You've got the legs, you got them in you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. I feel like, if I can take it out with, I feel like I'm in a weird spot because all the 400 guys are the same guys that's from the 1500 now.
Hmm.
And all the 200 guys are the same guys who can go 47 low in the 100. But so if I'm where I want to be, I'd have the most speed out of the 400 guys. And
Mm.
if I'm where I want to be, I'd have the most endurance out of the 200 guys. But obviously, I'd be lacking the endurance in the four, and I'd be lacking the speed in the two. But I feel like if I can, take it out with a lot of easy speed in that first 100, kind of like Thorpe did, that one time where he went
Mm.
out 52, he went 340, going at 52 to first 100,
Right.
and then he kind of steadies it out, for the next 200, and then just
Hmm.
rips it back home.
Right.
Um, I think that'd be a good strategy, and that'd be a different way to swim it, because right now the way to swim it is just these guys are just repping 28 zeros in the middle,
Hmm.
and that's very, very impressive. But I don't think for me that'd be the way to swim it. Um, because I think I can take advantage of my kick a little more and maybe take it out, be out there, you know,
Hmm.
use my efficiency and my long stroke in that middle 200, and then really bring back the last 100. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
How do you know when you're in a race like that? How do you know the pace? Is it just from the training itself and knowing the feel of the pace, or knowing the impact that it's having on your body? Like if you were to push a little harder and turn in a 27.5, let's say, you could feel that then, right?
Yeah, yeah. You could probably feel it, like, when you take the turn after 27.5 and you get off the wall, you could probably start feeling it pretty
You're
quickly.
feeling the legs, right?
Uh, yeah, yeah, you're
Yeah.
feeling the leg sweat a lot, and then I feel like for me, what happens is because I'm 6B kicking the whole way in a 400, legs but my legs can hold pretty well, but I guess, like, there's too much blood coming to my legs, and then it's actually my
Mm.
arms were really dying by the last
Mm.
100.
Mm.
And that's when I started losing a lot of the length, because I can go like 28 lows, 28 fives, no problem with like 28, 29 strokes. But as soon as we go to that lap, I start going to 32, 33 strokes, because I'm losing stroke length, because my arms just get really tired.
Yeah, yeah. How do you guys look at the field now? Like, the field is deep in terms of the assessment of each one of the contenders. Like, everybody's got their own strengths and weaknesses, I guess. Is that how you kind of
Yeah, yeah,
evaluate the field?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you look at everyone. You look at Sam Shorten, Hafnawi, you've been 340. You look at Elijah, who's been 341. Lucas Mertens been 341, and then there's kind of a gap. It's like those four
Mm,
guys have been 341 and faster, and then you have all the guys who've been 343 mid and 343 mid to 344. And in that group, you've got like Guilherme Costa, you've got Felix Aubach, you've got Dan Wiffen, you've got
mm,
Kieran Smith, who's been and
mm.
I think there's a little bit of a separation right now that those four guys that have made at the front. And I mean, I guess those guys are there to stay, and the race is going to be great. And you know, but I'm my goal is not to try to be in that race with the 343 guys, and I know those guys also are trying to catch up to those four guys who've been 341 and faster.
Yeah, interesting. So I was going to say that. So you're kind of seeing yourself in that mix with those guys, so that those guys are all trying to answer the same question. How do I get from here and go to there? So, like, what
Yeah.
what has been the separation for these few guys up here? Like, what have they done that the rest haven't been able to figure out yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I see a Hafnawi and Short, like I see that they can hold like such a higher rate than everyone else. They're hold a 44 rate for the whole 400.
Mm,
I look at someone like Lucas Martins. Well, he's 144.8 in the two free, which is faster than you know anyone anyone's been. I mean, anyone that swims the 400 has been. So he's the fastest guy out of everyone in that four free. And then Elijah just had this crazy swim in Budapest where he went 341, and he kind of does the strategy we talked about earlier, where he really like goes out the first 100, kind of settles
mm,
back, and then could bring it back home in a 26 low in the last 50. And yeah, I think the way I'm looking at it, I need to hold a higher rate to be able to kind of hang with those guys, because I'm rating like 34, 35 in my 400, which is very, very low. And then I gotta improve my top end speed as well to be able to go out, and because Sam is going out 149 now. So
mm,
yeah, it's very interesting because there's a lot of different strategies, and if you actually look at the race, like you can see, like you have Short and Hafnawi are there, then you have Felix is a little behind at the start, but then he brings it back, and then you have Lucas Martins on the side, and like it's very you know there's a lot of different strategies going on, and it's very interesting.
yeah. How does it feel to go to kind of like a world championships, Olympic games, and still be doing the type of yardage that you're doing, and looking over and seeing guys like me in the shower, just taking hot showers, relaxing, getting ready for the sprints, and then you're over there pumping out the yardage still.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I saw this thing one time. I think when Ben Titley was like, he said, people train for no, people go up in distance until their slowness is fast enough for that distance. And I'm not gonna lie to you. If I could go 21.5 in the 50 free, I'd probably just swim the 50 free, you know? If I could go 40, 46.9 or 46.8 in the 100, I'd probably do that also. I'm good friends with Jackie, and you've seen him train, and
Yeah.
I respect him tremendously, and, like, doing what he does is, like, I feel like, I mean, the 100 free is, like, the blue ribbon event at the Olympics,
Mm,
that's the event everyone wants to swim. Everyone wants to win, the world turns on for that event.
yeah.
So yeah, if I could go 47 low, 46, I'd love to do that.
Now you just had some success in Knoxville. Did you just break the Belgium record in the 800?
Yeah, yeah. So I went 7:55, which is pretty good in season, but, like, when you see those guys going low 7:40s, even high 7s, at world championships, like, I'm debating whether I should add, the event to my lineup. I'm entering it in Doha, but I'm not sure that I'll swim it. Yeah, so yeah, that was Belgian record in the 8, yeah.
Congrats, man. That's awesome. So,
Thank you.
well, what's the target then? What's the lineup? So ultimately, the target is the four.
Yeah, 400 and 200. I mean, I was 146, 2 last year, trying to bring that down, to the high 145s, which would final. I think it was 145.97 to get in the final, so not that far off. And then the 4, at 346 low, I'm trying to bring that down to, like, 344s, and trying to be in that final, and hopefully even lower than that to compete for the spots on the box, you know?
Yeah. How do you
Yeah.
feel about Doha, man? I was talking to Matt Richards the other day, and he was telling me that he's probably going to be sitting in the stands for the final of the 200 free. So like you got the defending world champ, I guess, sitting in the stands watching. How would you feel about that?
I mean, obviously you want the best, you want to race against the best competition. I think from what I saw, I think he's going, but maybe swimming the 50 and the 100. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people will say, like, oh, if people who medal in, like, slower times than in Fukuoka, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's not real, it doesn't count. I still feel like you gotta show up, you gotta, like, be really good, you gotta be top 3 in the world out out of the people who are doing it. But obviously it doesn't. I don't think it carries the same if you have Popovich, who went 142 not even 2 years
Mm,
ago. It's not going to do it. If you have Matt Richards that's in the stands watching, um, yeah, I think it's a little different because you want to, if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best, and you have to race against those guys, and the experience of racing against those guys is invaluable,
yeah.
and yeah, if they're not swimming it, because they're focused on their Olympic preparation, like, that's totally understandable, and I respect that. But obviously it'll be a little different to not get to race these guys.
Yeah. When was the last time a Belgium swimmer made the final in the 200 free?
Never. I think so. I broke the Belgian record last year, so I think the Belgian record before that was 146.95. So I
Mm,
think that maybe semi-finaled at the Olympics. But I mean, we had Peter Timmers, who got silver in the 100 free in
right.
Rio,
Right.
47.80. That was obviously one of the highlights of Belgian swimming.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 other medals at the games. 96, Fred de Burggraeve won the 100 breast, and then I think it's 1984, we had a girl medal in the 2 breast.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, finaling in the 2 and the 4 is now that's obviously the goal, and, yeah, I'd be the first, Belgian guy to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting, like where you talk about finaling, right? Like, cause I remember myself having that mentality as an Australian swimmer. No Australian swimmer had ever made the final of the 50 freestyle in the Olympics. So my goal was to be that guy. I had a very similar mindset to you. Like, I want to make the final, and ultimately I went on to do that. And one of my I don't know if it's a life regret, but one of my thoughts that I had to myself is like, well, if I gave myself that standard and I did it, and yet I still fell short by a few 100ths of winning a medal, why didn't I just think about getting on the podium? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of one of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
regrets in life of like I did that and it was great, but why didn't I just put myself on the podium before I did that? You know, and maybe I had a
Yeah,
chance
yeah.
then, and I never gave myself that mental opportunity. Do you
Mhm.
feel that way a little bit?
Um, I mean, honestly, like, I'm saying now that my goal is to final, et cetera, but, like, realistically, I'm not really thinking about what I would place or, like, what my position would be against other guys. I'm just, like, trying to find a I mean, trying to find a way to swim 340, you know, like, sub 340. And whether that's this year, whether that's next year, whether that never happens, like, that's kind of what one of my life goals, you know, is, thinking about breaking 340. And I mean, it's a big claim to come and say that when, you've been through 46, but like, um, that's just what I aim for. And that puts me first, fourth, or or I break the world record, like that's great. But like I really think that that would be pushing the human limit, and that's what I want to be doing. I don't because I can't control what Sam Short, Hafnawi, all the guys are gonna go, and if they go 337, and I'm fifth with a 339, I still think I'd be extremely happy.
Yeah, I think you would be as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I did read a quote where I think at the was it the last World Championships where you didn't qualify for the final, you were sitting there in the stands and you were kind of pissed off because you thought I could be
yeah,
there, I could beat those guys, I can compete with those guys. Didn't you think that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
did. Um, I did, and I was really pissed because I think I should have been a lot better in
right.
those prelims, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's also, I mean, like I've done two international championships in my life. Like I went to
Yep.
Europeans in 2022 and Worlds in 2023,
Mm.
and I guess European short course this year. But like I need to learn how to swim in the morning. I need to learn how to like swim fast in the morning. I need to learn how to get into a call room with all these guys and feel zero intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to walk out and see the crowd and not feel intimidated, and then I need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to execute the race plan. Once I dive in, no matter what happens in the race. Like my heat this year at Worlds like went out incredibly fast, um, like 149 to the 200, and I was 151 low to the 200, which is faster than I've ever been. And that wasn't my race strategy. The way for me to swim it is probably be you know, 152 high and just even split it. That's the way I like to swim it. And I just like got caught up, and I get sometimes I get in the call room and I'm like, oh damn, like that's Tom Dean. He's wow, like that's who he is, whatever. And
Yeah.
I see myself looking around a little bit because I don't have the experience yet, and I haven't had that many reps at that level.
It's interesting that you're talking about this because, and I appreciate your honesty and your openness because, I have very similar experiences in my life like you, and and I look back on it and I remember thinking the same way as you, and I see you and I watch you and I listen to you talking about all this time and energy you're putting into preparing your system physiologically, right? Like you're preparing this
Yeah,
system, and the only things you mentioned in terms of performance were mental things, right? Like
yeah,
you didn't talk about, and those were the things that affected your performance the most. So like you're
yeah,
spending all this time physically preparing the body, but the things that affect you the most once you get to the meet are mental things, aren't they?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
how do you prepare
That
then? How do you train for that mentally then? Like if you're getting yourself physically, you're spending hours and hours and hours physically. What are you doing mentally to prepare yourself for those situations?
Yeah. So I've been starting to work with a sports psychologist, which
Hmm.
has been very helpful.
Mm,
But I think ultimately it's just getting a lot of reps against these guys and racing these guys a lot. So even though this is Olympic year, like I want to compete as much as I can against the top guys. So that's why I chose to go to Doha. That's why I went to European short course. That's why I'll probably go to Europeans, in June to go and to try to race those top guys because I don't want that to happen again where I walk in the call room and I'm looking around, just like seeing all these guys and being like, maybe I mean I don't have that pedigree like they have. And yeah, I think working with a sports psychologist and putting stuff into place every time I race to be able to, go into a race against the best in the world and feel comfortable, is great, and that's why Knoxville, like obviously it's January, it's in season, but like being able to swim next to Bobby, next to Felix, next to a lot of those guys, and actually being able to like hold off Bobby at the end. Maybe we're not in the same place training wise. Maybe he just didn't have his best race, but like it still adds to my confidence to be able to beat some of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I can identify with you a lot. And even the language that you're using right now, I would disagree with. I would tell you to change the way that you speak to yourself. You
Yeah.
give these guys too much credit. And look, I'm not taking away from the fact that they're phenomenal athletes, but what you're not doing is you're not giving yourself enough credit of where you are and who you are. You keep referring to these guys as the top guys, the top guys, the top guys. And so it's almost like when you see that person, you're automatically giving that person, you're elevating that person above you. That person's better than
Mhm.
me. They're a top guy. When you're kind of like not looking at yourself that way. Like you're a top guy. And maybe they're thinking that about you. Maybe they see you walk
Yeah.
into the room and they say, oh shit, there's Lucas. He's a top guy, right? And so
Yeah.
here's you saying that about them, and maybe they're saying the same thing about you, and you're not even giving yourself credit for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And that's actually something Marsh has talked to me. Dave Marsh has talked to me a lot, and
Mm,
he kept on being like, you need to establish yourself and feel
mm,
about yourself like you're one of the best in the world,
mm-hmm.
and that's the only way for you to actually be comfortable in those situations.
Yeah,
Is to go out there and feel like you belong there, like you are one of the best guys in the world, and feel like, and yeah, I guess you're right in saying that I need to change the way I'm talking to myself because all the
all right.
talk and like ev whether it's talking to someone or talking to myself, if I continue to do that, then I'll continually get to, you know, the
Yeah.
Olympics or Worlds and still continue thinking "Oh, these guys are the top guys." I wanna ask you, when you were swimming, like, 50 free final, you in Athens, you walk into the call room, do you look at these Gary Hall, do you look at Popov, do you look at these guys as the top guys, or did you feel like you were part of them?
No, 100%. You're right. I looked at them and I thought of them as the top guys, right? Like
Yeah,
when I finally made the final of the Olympics, I was 29 years old, and I had spent a lifetime trying to get to that point. And you're
yeah,
in that moment for 10 minutes, like it's 10
yeah, yeah,
minutes of your life. And so when you're
yeah,
in that moment, you realize this is it. Like I have trained and I have lived years and years and years, and I've trained so hard to get to this point, and it's a 10-minute event. And now I'm in it and I'm like, wow, I made it. There's that guy, there's that guy, there's that guy, right? Now I'm in the Olympic final. I look outside, there's thousands of people in the stands, there's millions of people watching on TV. I have like gone over this event over and over in my head a million times, wanting just to be in that moment. And here I am in this moment now, right? It's
yeah,
here. So you spend that amount of time thinking about all the time you took to get to that moment, right? Instead of just
yeah, yeah,
saying, this is my moment. I'm here now. I
yeah,
am exactly where I need to be. And I own this moment. And I spent the whole time thinking about how how much I had to put in to get to that thing. It's like, so I spent all this
yeah,
time wasting about like all this other shit that didn't matter,
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
just saying, I'm here, this is my moment. And so
yeah,
because it kind of hits you, it surprises you, like, oh wow, I'm actually here now. So
yeah, yeah,
um, yeah, I think you got to spend more time preparing for that moment to say, when I'm in it, I'm gonna embrace it. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna own it, right? I'm gonna own that moment, even though I know it's only 10 minutes. That's the 10 minutes I'm gonna own. instead of
Yeah.
spending all this time thinking about, oh wow, I finally made it to here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
And
I think there's
that
a lot to learn from that. And so I would recommend to you, if I was going to recommend anything to you, I would recommend expecting yourself to be in the final in Doha, expecting certain people to be in that room with you, expecting to feel a certain way about the the expectation of being in that room, right? Like I
yeah,
expected to be here. This is exactly what I planned to be here for, and I'm going to do exactly what I plan to do. So if you already have this plan in place and not be surprised by it, like, oh wow, I can't believe I made it. Look at me, look
yeah,
where I
yeah,
am. Then it's like now you're confident and comfortable in that moment. Now you can own that moment more so than being surprised that you're actually there, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's a good point. And I noticed this with Jack Alexi at Worlds. So
Mm,
in Fuku, like I trained with him the whole semester, and like I get to the pool and like every day, and I'm incredibly confident in myself and what I'll be able to do in practice,
mhm.
and I'm
Yep.
just like there ready to go, and just like I know what I'm working towards, and I'm super confident in that moment. And then I see, and Jack is just like he's I mean you know how locked in he is, and that
Yep.
kind of stuff. But then I see him walk at world championships, and he's walking around like he owns the place. He has
Mhm.
that confidence. He has that mentality where he knows I mean, he knows he's capable of it. He knows he can beat all the guys next to him. And I mean, he walks in that ready room, he just does his thing, and then he goes and, drops so much time, gets 2 silver medals. And
Mhm.
and I was really impressed when I would see him walk around pool deck, walk around the warm-up pool and team area. He was just like standing incredibly tall, and you could tell he had like a confidence to him.
Mhm.
And that's something that I feel like I was missing last year, and
Yeah.
I'm really working towards it. And I talked with Jack a lot about it, and he gave me some good pointers
Yeah.
about that as well. And yeah,
I think some people have it naturally, and then some of
yeah,
us, like people like you and I, have to fake it, right? In a way. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, right? But like
yeah,
if we miss the boat on this and we don't have that confidence, then we don't perform at our best. So our
yeah,
only hope is to figure out a way to put ourselves in a position where we can believe that, right? So what I would do,
yeah,
and this is maybe a recommendation I would give to you again, is it's almost like a superhero. The superhero has somebody they are and then somebody they become, right? Almost like a
yeah,
Incredible
yeah.
Hulk
Alter
or
ego.
a Superman, right? Superman is very unconfident, he's very unsure of himself as Clark Kent.
Yeah,
And then he goes into
yeah,
that
yeah,
phone booth and he takes the clothes off. And so maybe even create some type of event like that where when you put your suit on, what is that thing you're wearing right now? Is that a Belgium
Uh, this is
tracksuit?
yeah, Olympic Committee. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah.
that's a special
Tracksuit. Yeah,
thing. So when you put this tracksuit on, you become something different. And it's almost like you have this different persona where you become this ultra um, confident beast, but it's only
yeah,
when you put that tracksuit on and then you take it
yeah,
off and you're unsure of yourself, you have fears, you have doubts, and then you put that on and everything goes away, right? So like you've got
mhm,
to create some sort of event in the lead up to this, and it may only be just a short amount of time where you've got a window. You might say, okay, I've got this window of 2 hours. When I put this thing on for 2 hours, then I'm a
yeah,
completely different human. And then I take it
yeah,
off and I'm back to being humble and shy and unsure of myself. Whatever you can be,
yeah,
whatever you want to be, but when you
yeah,
put
yeah.
that uniform on, you become something completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you for that.
Yeah. 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 Look, it's worth trying. And like you have a situation now, you got the world championships coming up. So it's definitely, look, I would do a lot of mental preparation to put yourself in that room. I would prepare yourself to feel a certain way when you want to,
Mhm.
and then just go out and test it. And then it's a matter of just repeating that, because ultimately what you're trying to do is prepare yourself for Paris. You want to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
at your best in Paris. So this is a dress rehearsal. This is a trial run for you to say,
yeah,
look, at the end of the day, the guys you're competing against, they don't have an extra arm than you. They don't have an extra leg.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't have two hearts, right? They're built
Yeah, yeah.
exactly the same as you, right? And often
Mhm.
what we do is we give them we say they're more than us, you know, and they're not more than
Yeah,
us. They've
yeah.
got two hands, two arms, two legs, 2 feet, you know, a heart. They're exactly the same. They're built the same way. The only thing they do is like Jack Alexi, they see themselves as superior at that point in time. And it's a
Yeah.
short period of time. Jack Alexi doesn't walk around like he's superior all the time.
No, no, no.
But
No,
when
no.
he's at the world championships and he's trying to win the 100 freestyle, for that 2 hours, he's superior, right? And so he
Yeah,
allows himself that time to say, this is my time to feel invincible, to feel like a superhero. So yeah, just
yeah.
take on a different persona at that point in time, you know?
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're right there, man. You've come a long way, you know, and I
Yeah,
imagine
yeah.
it's the same thing on the golf course. You know, you
Yeah.
at some point you just have to turn your brain off and say, hey, the tournament depends on this shot. I gotta take
Mhm.
this shot. I'm gonna hit this shot, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. If you have all these doubts and fears and insecurities, then you know you're not going to make the shot. You know, it's inevitable.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not going to make the shot if you don't believe it. So yeah, you got to do the same thing in the pool.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I enjoyed that, man. Thanks.
Yeah,
Took
thank you. Thank you, yeah.
took took me back to some
That w
racing there. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I needed some of that to hear it from maybe someone outside of, my circle of people, and you
Yeah.
went pretty deep in that, and I think that helped me, and I like the idea where you're saying, like, put your tracksuit on and just, you know, for those 2
Yeah.
hours, you're just something different,
I
and
learned this from somebody, you know, somebody once told me that surgeons, you know,
yeah,
in the hospital
yeah, yeah.
can be arrogant and cocky, you know,
Okay.
but outside of surgery, they're not like that, you know. And one of the things
Yeah,
that somebody told me is like the surgeons have a uniform, you know, and it hangs in their locker. And when they
yeah,
come in that day to do surgery, they take off their work clothes, they take off their regular human clothes, and they put on this surgery uniform, and they
yeah,
become something completely different, right?
yeah,
You know, in order to, you know, surgically work on a human and save that person's life and intricately work on a heart, you better be confident, you know. You better be
yeah,
confident.
yeah, yeah,
You better have an arrogance and a confidence to say, I'm gonna get this. Like this,
yeah,
nobody else can do this. Nobody else can save this person's life. I'm gonna go in and do surgery on this heart. So what I heard, these surgeons, when they put their uniform on and walk into surgery, they're completely different people, you know. And I'm like, oh, that
yeah,
makes sense, you know. It's like it's the same thing. It's like, you know, you put a uniform on. A policeman has to have a certain persona, you know. When they walk
yeah,
into a situation, you know, they've got this police uniform on. They're not human at that point. They're police, right? So it's like
yeah,
every type of profession has something like that. A fireman, you know, you go into you send me into a fire, I'm going to freak out. But you put a
yeah, yeah,
uniform on me and a fire hat and a badge and give me this hose, like I'm taking that fire down. You know what I mean? So it's
yeah,
like it's the same mentality as that we have to have as athletes. It's like we put on our athletic uniform where we're something completely different now. You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's interesting with me is I'm able to get in a similar state in training. I put my
Yeah.
suit on, I
Yep.
look at the board, and I'm
Yep.
like, all right, I'm taking this on. Like this is gonna
Yep.
be, I'm never like scared or whatever of something that's gonna
Yep.
happen in practice. But once you get to compete and go against these other people, that's
Mhm.
when it kind of changes for me. And yeah, I got to really work on that between now and Paris.
Yeah. Exactly. Stop giving these guys credit. You know. I tell this story occasionally on my podcast, and I'll tell it again because I think it's very very important. Um, you know, the time the most nervous I've ever been in my life is trying to make the Olympic team in 2000. Right, like it
Yeah,
was my home Olympics. You know, imagine this,
yeah, yeah,
Lucas. You know, you have
yeah,
the
yeah,
home Olympics. you're competing with guys like Ian Thorpe who had held up on this pedestal like the greatest athletes of all time. So like to make the Australian Olympic team in Sydney, this is the biggest deal you can have as an athlete, right? And a swimmer in Sydney in Australia, like that's the ultimate, right? It's the pinnacle. So I remember sitting in my hotel room. There was a bed like this. I was sitting in my hotel room and I was tossing and turning all day, because the finals are at night, so you swim the semi-final the night before, then you have 24 hours off. And so I go back to my hotel room and rest. I tell you what, I was tossing and turning in this bed the whole day, tossing and turning, tossing. I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't relax. And I remember getting in a rush, like, okay, it's time. I'm ready to go. Like, here we go. It's time. And I'm in a rush, I'm like, let's go. So I put my stuff on. I grab everything. I can feel my heartbeat, like, and I'm like, okay, come on, here we go. It's time to make the Olympic team. Like I'm putting all this pressure on myself. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I'm amped up. I got the adrenaline pumping, and I'm hoping, like I can feel the hope, Lucas. I'm like, I hope I get this. I hope this works out. And I remember like walking out the door, and just as the door was about to close behind me, I stopped the door and I'm like, I can't leave like this. Like I'm too anxious. I'm like this. I'm like, I'm not gonna make the team like this. So I remember walking back in. I remember looking in the mirror in my bedroom, I just like looked at myself. I'm like, stop. Like you got this. You're good enough. You've trained for this. This is just a swim from here to there, like every other day. You do this in practice every day. You are going to dominate this race, and nobody is going to come close to you. Stop doubting yourself. When you walk out this room, you're a completely different person again. Again, I had these thoughts of myself, like you're going to be a different person. And I remember walking out the second time, walking towards the pool, and I was calm. I was relaxed. I was in control. I had confidence, and I everything slowed down for me. 5 minutes before this, everything was speeding up. Everything was in a rush. And I remember slowing things down, pulling back time as if time was standing still. And it was like I had control of time, like I have control of this. This is my time. Everything's going to happen when I want it to happen, And then I went out there and I broke the Australian record, Lucas. Like I swam faster than I've ever swum. I dominated the race. I made the Olympic team. And then again, as soon as I touched the wall, I was like, I had all these insecurities. Like, oh, how did I do that? I have had experience with this. I didn't always put it into practice. I think it's harder when you have guys like that you revere, that you admire around you. Yeah, you do put them up on a pedestal. But sometimes you just have to put the blinkers on and say, oh, this one's mine. This is my race. So I'd like to see you do that in Doha. I'm going to be in Doha with you. I'm going to be there.
Nice.
I'm going to be watching you. I'm going to be supporting and cheering you. And I want to see you walk out, and I want to point and be like, yeah, he's ready. He's ready.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
All right. Cool, man.
Awesome.
Sorry for the lecture. I didn't mean to lecture you. I just wanted to have a chat.
No, I love this. This is awesome. And it's actually, I've talked to a lot of coaches about training physiology and all that stuff, and I don't spend enough, like you said earlier, I don't spend enough time focusing on the psychological aspect of it, and having conversations like these. I'm sure are gonna help me in those moments, because the moments in training, they're every day, they're easy to go by, but you only have 1 or 2 or 3 moments where you walk into an Olympic final or something, and it's conversations like these that are going to help me, in those moments. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. All I would say is if you train your heart, if you train your system, then you can train your mind as well. So put yourself in scenarios that feel like the scenario that you'd be in Doha or Paris. Maybe have a ready room set up, and you walk in and you just start to visualize, and you start to feel, and you start to imagine that moment, and when it happens, and even imagine yourself being comfortable in that moment, because once you're there, once you do get into that moment, even all the imagining that you've done is only relative if you allow yourself to still be comfortable in that moment, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like that's the training that you need to put in, is just that comfort of, I belong here. This is the time where I'm going to go out and perform and allow my training just to take over. Like you said, you
Yeah.
know, like if I've trained to swim at a level of 340 or better, then I'm going to allow my body to do that. You know, it's like you give
Yeah.
yourself permission to say, go and do what your training, you know, allows you to do. So yeah, you just
Yeah.
give yourself permission on that, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. This has been cool, man. You got a
Yeah.
look good career ahead of you. And I'm excited for what's ahead this year. It's going to be a good year, man. And, anytime you refer to anything being big, refer to yourself. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Take
Awesome.
care, Lucas.
Well, thanks for having me on this. This was awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
hope to see you in Doha. And
Yeah. And listen, if things work out this year and we have a great year like we expect to have, then we're going to do this again and we're going to talk about the things that you put into place. Okay.
awesome. Great.
All right.
Love it.
Thanks, Lucas. Take care, man.
Thank you. Bye bye, Brett.
Bye.
Thank you.